Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are joining us from. My name again is Amaka Ibeji, and I am the founder of DPO Africa Network. It is a true honor to welcome you all to Real Talk with the Regulators webinar. This is our Data Protection in Practice webinar. When we started this network, it was a vision to build a trusted home for data protection officers and privacy professionals across the continent, across Africa. Today, we are seeing hundreds of you log in from many countries. I'm only just reminded of how powerful our community can be when we all come together to share, to learn, and inspire one another. I want to extend my heartfelt appreciation to our panelists, our moderator, and every one of you taking the time to invest in your own growth and in the privacy journey on the continent. Your commitment is the engine driving this meaningful change. And it's not just in your organization, but in shaping the future of data protection in Africa. This conversation is more than a webinar. It is beyond a webinar. It is a movement, and I want to re-emphasize that. A movement towards collaboration, towards excellence, and towards a future where privacy and trust are at the heart of every innovation. It is beautiful to see that in solidarity we can have people come in from Somalia, from Kenya, from Nigeria, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Libya, Ghana, across the continent. Together we can learn, share, and grow together. I want to welcome you all to having a rich, open, and practical conversation. And I am aware that beyond the continent, we have people joining from across the globe. Thank you for choosing to invest your time with us. And so next up, we will be bringing in our moderator and our panelists. It is going to be a rich conversation, and I want you all to contribute, ask those questions, chime in, and we're going to do things a little bit differently. So you are aware, some of our panelists are unable to join because of a last-minute emergency, but we will make the most of the time that we have together. Permit me to welcome our moderator, Alan. 1 second, and I will bring him on stage. I'm just going to get Alan, who is going to be our moderator for today, and bring him on stage. Alan, if you're on here, please indicate so that I can bring you on stage. Our panelists, please indicate, and I will bring you on stage. Okay, I see them queuing up. This is awesome. So welcome Alan on stage. Please take it away. Alan will be our moderator for today while I queue up the rest of our panelists. Alan, let's do this.
Thank you so much, Amaka, and thank you so much, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to connect with other DPOs from across the continent and to share experiences. It's such an honor to be talking to the regulators themselves, and these are the people that have been shaping the narrative of data protection in the continent. And it's such good to have a conversation because Amaka, as you may be aware, in May the regulators met in Nigeria for the NATPA conference. So it's so good that we get to talk and to listen and possibly get some feedback. Though it's not feedback per se, but just to know how things are going on the continent. So I'm so excited to talk and moderate the conversation between our esteemed regulators and.
Did we lose Alan for a second? Let's just hold on because the internet seems spotty on his end. Okay, while Alan is on freeze and I think he's coming back soon, now he's muted. Alan, please unmute and take it away. Okay, let's see. Bear with us, a lot of technical issues today. For us to make this a success, we have to rely on the internet and having everyone up and running. So let's give Alan some grace, some minutes to reconnect. We can see he's on stage, so he's pulling out and trying to get back on stage. Okay, 1 second, please, while we have Alan leaving stage and hopefully going to reconnect with us soon. Okay, while we're waiting for Alan, I think I will just jump ship and get in place of Alan. I will be introducing first panelist today, and we have Zichini, who is going to be coming on stage. Zichini is from Portras. Zichini, if you can unmute yourself and come on screen, that will be awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much, Zucchini. Please, while we have Alan drop off, can you please introduce yourself? Tell us who you are. Let's get to meet you, Zucchini. It's really an honor and a pleasure to have you here with us. Thank you for joining us, Zucchini.
Thank you, Amaka, and hello, everyone. My name is Richanzi Mugota. I am with Portres, which is the Data Protection Authority of Zimbabwe, and I'm a deputy director in the authority, in the Data Protection Authority. And I'm really excited to be having this conversation with the DPO Africa Network. And thank you once again, Amaka, and your team for giving us this opportunity. I am very passionate about training and capacity building of data protection officers, as well as developing guidelines and compliance frameworks to make the work of data protection officers easier. And I like to share ideas and collaborate with other practitioners and other regulators across the continent. So this afternoon, this is afternoon in Zimbabwe. I'm really looking forward to hearing what other regulators are doing, and also to share experiences and to look ahead to what DPOs in Africa can look forward to, what opportunities are there for growth, and more importantly, collaboration. So that's what I could say in a nutshell, Amaka. Thank you.
Awesome, awesome. Good to have you here. Really a pleasure to have you. For those of you who did not read our first digest, you will see that the vision of DPO Africa was actually conceived in Zimbabwe. So when you have a lot of Zimbabweans on the call, you should know why that is. So we have Alan back. Alan, if you can unmute to confirm that you could take it away. Else, I will continue to drive with the Chinzi. Alan, can you unmute? You're back on stage. Okay, while Alan is still sorting out his technical things, Chinzi, can you just tell us your journey into data protection, seeing that you are a regulator? What's that journey like? Because a lot of people, when they think about data protection, it's all about becoming a data protection officer. But before we get into the data protection officer side of things, tell us about your journey to becoming a regulator, and how has it been? We want to hear from you and understand your journey as well.
Okay, so my journey has been very interesting. So I am a lawyer by training, and before I joined the regulator, I was at the university where I was a law lecturer. So one of my students then came to me and they were looking into writing a dissertation on cyber and data protection. And they said to me, do you know that we've got this draft data protection legislation, and I want to write a small critique about it in preparation for doing my dissertation. And at that
Oh,
point,
wow.
I hadn't even read the draft bill. I think this was in 2018, and I didn't even know that this was on the cards. I had no idea what data protection was about. So I say to them, "Oh, that could be interesting." But in my head, I was already running around to say, "Okay, I need to go and read what this is about." And of course, I did my reading, and then I also realized that the GDPR had come into effect, and the whole data protection movement was quite big. And I was like, oh, okay, this could be interesting. Let me read more on this. So I got interested and I started reading. Then I came across the PECB course on being a lead DPO implementer, and I decided, let me take on this course. And so the more I read about data protection, the more interested I became. Um, so also at that time, our act then got promulgated, and I realized that they had obviously established a data protection authority. So it was a matter of time before they started looking for people to join that authority. And I was at a time where I was looking for new challenges. So I made sure I made a lot of noise about data protection, and having little talks at the university with my students about data protection until, well, people noticed me and said, oh, she knows something about data protection. So when the authority was established, I got to join the team. And I joined Porters in 2023. That's when our authority was established. And the good thing about it was that we're starting from a green field where we had to come up with a data protection authority for our country. We had to come up with guidelines for compliance, and also one of the biggest things was to raise awareness because lots of people had no clue what data protection is about. Um, Let alone trying to work with the data controllers and businesses, policymakers, for them to understand what data protection is about. So we realized, look, we need to do more of awareness raising so that we can build the capacity and understanding of what data protection was. And that is something that I've always enjoyed, introducing new things to people at various levels, and working with captains of industry as well as policymakers. We had to do sessions with our parliamentarians, our senators, at local government levels as well, organizing workshops and information sharing meetings, even town hall sort of level meetings on data protection. And also, so when we got to start that work, we also started partnering with universities to build capacity to come up with a data protection officers training course. And I'm sure you would remember, Amaka, when you were in Zimbabwe, that we actually had a certification ceremony of our data protection officers. And so we do it as a way to standardize data protection in Zimbabwe, but also to have the right skills for people to actually then go out there and become data protection officers. So my journey really started with somebody telling me about data protection and me not wanting to sound like I didn't know anything about it and reading. And it has now resulted in me having a new career that I actually really, really feel passionate about. And when I realized how big data protection is, not only in Zimbabwe, but in the world, I'm actually really amazed to say, how come I didn't know about this earlier? I could have joined the movement earlier on. And I'm really excited, like I said in my introduction, about what you are doing with the privacy DPO network. And I really also am excited to see it grow as data protection grows on the African continent.
No, this is really exciting, and it's just helping us to humanize who our regulators are. And as you go through your journey, it might be very helpful for those on the call, because we have a mix of people in our community. Those who are, we call them practicing DPOs. We also have those who are aspiring DPOs. Before we get into the practicing DPOs, tell us, what do you see as common traits or common patterns that effective DPOs typically have? You've shared a couple of them, but I want you to bring it all together to say, hey, for an effective DPO from your vantage point as a regulator, what do you see?
In my experience, the good DPOs are those who constantly engaging with others, collaborating with others to share ideas and information, and also who those who are participating in different forums. Because, like in Zimbabwe, for you to be a data protection officer, you need to have that certification that the authority runs. But then you can practice as a data protection officer in Zimbabwe. But for you to be a particularly good DPO, you then need as well to have international exposure and participating in different forums. So, it might also serve you to do a different course on data protection, or to attend a webinar that is being organized from a different jurisdiction on data protection. That way you become more alive to what is happening in the data protection sphere. So a good DPO is one who's constantly learning and collaborating and networking with other practitioners from different jurisdictions. Um, and also, because in our jurisdiction, the DPO practice is really a green field. So one who is going to be tenacious and work hard to getting clients by giving them good value propositions, so that they can hire you to be the data protection officer. Because in Zimbabwe, we have trained 1,000. Actually, as of today, we now have 1,050 data protection officers. So those are also out there trying to get clients to hire them as their data protection officer. So you have to have a very good value proposition for you to get that appointment as a DPO. But on top of working hard to get the clients, you need to give them value for their money. So you're going to need to work really hard, be a person who uh, displays integrity, independent thinking, but one who delivers their work on time. So it also requires you to know your capacity or your limitations, really, to say, look, I've got the capacity to effectively service 10 clients, then do a good job for those 10 clients instead of continuously onboarding more clients and then your service quality is compromised. It's better to have less clients but give them the best service. That way you'll be able to build your portfolio. And also, the more successful DPOs do not work alone. I think I've already spoken about collaboration, but they work as a team. So if you are a team, you're able to do work faster and better, and you can also review each other's work and also take in a bit more clients, but you'll be able to give them a better service because you are working as a team. And the good DPO has good relations with the regulator. you really want to know what is happening in the space, what it is you should be doing in order for your work, which is mainly compliance, to be proper and compliant with what the regulator is thinking. So having building good relations with the regulator through participating in events that the regulator would have organized, or if the regulator is giving a talk somewhere, it doesn't hurt to participate or to network at that level, or to watch the regulators' LinkedIn or their socials, really, to see what is coming up, and obviously to be on their mailing list, so that you are braced with things that are happening. Like our approach as a regulator involves us interacting with our controllers and our DPOs. Like in a month's time, we are going to be presenting some draft guidelines, and we want input from our data and from the controllers before we actually then officially unveil those guidelines. So, as a good DPO, it would be good for you to actually participate in that regulation guideline discussion forum, and also have your views heard, so that when those regulations have been promulgated, it becomes easier for you to help your clients to implement those regulations in your day-to-day work. Thank you, Amaka.
This, no, this is quite awesome. And while we're waiting for Immaculate to join in, we there's a little bit of a technical challenge on the back end. Let's continue this conversation because this is very helpful. We know that what's obtainable in Zimbabwe can mirror what's obtainable across the continent, which is very helpful. And I love the fact that you talked about collaboration. This is a net new field for a number of countries on the continent, and seeing people come together is incredibly powerful. First of all, the kind of questions that people ask gets refined over time. How people solve data protection challenges gets also refined over time. I tell people that this is a game of value. We're here to provide value, not just to the end users, because sometimes you could get to the extreme, but you also have to balance it with the business and also think again holistically the society at large. What does this mean for us as a society? So this is incredibly important. And as Portras is building up, knowledge bank and serving DPOs, the same activity is also going on in different countries. And so you can imagine when we cross collaborate, and what happens is some questions that have not been answered in some quarters, we don't have to reinvent the wheel on the continent. All we need to do is plug and play. If it happens somewhere, let's reuse it. Not just reusing it, but also optimizing on whatever we have acquired. And I think it's incredibly powerful. I'd share one particular scenario before I come back to you, Zachinzi. In the volunteer group here at DPO Africa, and Lorato, if you want to put the link in for those who may be interested in joining, we're actually looking at our regulatory document. What are we focused on right now? We just want to go across the continent and see what are the data subject rights on the continent. And we're also benchmarking that with GDPR, because everybody says GDPR, but there are subtle nuances across the continent. We're seeing things around right of the disease, because when you look at GDPR, it's for the living person, right? And now we're seeing some countries saying, okay, yes, you have my data while I'm alive, but I also have right post-mortem. Like when I pass on, how should my data be used? And it's bringing up very interesting questions. And the individuals who are looking at this might not even be a right in their country, but it's now opening up ideas of, what can go wrong? Why is this country talking about giving rights to people who have passed on, and what rights do they have? Who is going to be their next of kin? Who is going to decide on what data should be used. To give you one example, while we're uncovering this, we realized, oh, what if someone had passed from cancer and that information is there? If because the individual is dead and has no right and that data is being used, their family members have no recourse. But if they want to protect the sensitivity of that data and someone in the family has been given the right on how that data should be used, the person can now decide how this data should be used. Very interesting concept, but as we look at it in one pocket, of the continent, we can now say, if this makes a whole lot of sense, how can we broaden this conversation, bring it to bear? Because at the end of the day, what we're after is how can we minimize risk of um, data that we collect to the individual. So we are humanizing the data, but in the same token, drive innovation, because there's tons of things we can do from an innovative standpoint. Data, we know, is the new currency, is the new oil, is the new gold, is the new thing that has value. And so it bears to mind that, as DPOs, we have a huge challenge on our hands on how can we think through all of this. And why Alan is back right now, I'd hand over to him if he comes back on. We will start looking at compliance challenges as you train people on the continent. What's the biggest compliance challenge that you are seeing from DPOs? Because people want to learn, people want to evolve, and people want to have a safe space where they can collaborate. So while you talk about the compliance challenge, also expand on um, the initiative that you had mentioned around um, putting out documentations for review. How can people also collaborate? DPOs, how can they collaborate with regulators? Because it's a lot. You've trained over 1,000 people, and if they have queries, who do they go to? What's the healthy balance for communication with regulators? So take it away, and Alan, you take over from here until you need me again. Go ahead,
Thank
Chinze.
you, Amaka.
So, the biggest challenge that we have had in our country on compliance was very low levels of awareness. So it's like, imagine trying to check if somebody has been doing something right when they don't even know what they're supposed to be doing. So we've realized that um, in order for us to have optimum levels of compliance, we have to put in a lot of work in raising awareness and in advocacy and lobbying at the right levels. So last year we had our regulations promulgated over and above of our act, and we faced some resistance because people did not want to be regulated, as it were, because we make our data controllers pay data controlling license fees, depending on the size of the controller. So they range from $50 to $2,500 on a sliding scale. So, but people were very resistant to that. So we had litigation, people trying to have the regulations suspended, we even have to have having the act repealed. So we had to step back and realize we needed to raise awareness at the very right levels before we could even do any actual compliance and take it one step at a time. So in Zimbabwe, our jurisdiction, our regulatory space really has not yet fully matured for us to get to real compliance stages. So instead, we're taking it as a phased approach where we are still doing a lot of capacity building, but we also are cognizant of the fact that if we don't move on to the next stage, then we will not be able to take data protection to the next stage. So we have adopted a phased approach where the first half of 2025, we were inviting people for voluntary compliance, really, with the laws, and we have now moved to a stage where we are also collaborating, saying to our controllers, come and we will assist you to comply. We can do some checks for you, and we can tell you where there are gaps in your data protection practices, so that you can be properly compliant with the law. And we issue out certificates. In June, we had a ceremony which helped, where we are handing over licenses to those who were compliant. And because it was a public ceremony where the minister officiated, we got lots of people coming up to get registered to license as data controllers. We got more people coming to our program so that they could also become data protection officers because of that public ceremony that we also had. And this week, we've got a long list of compliant organizations that's going to be published in our newspapers. And obviously, everybody wants to have their organization listed as a compliant organization. So we anticipate that there's going to be more traction with people coming on board. And one of the things that we're doing when we're doing the guidelines is that we've got one where we are lobbying for more enforcement powers, because currently our regulations have got a fine of $1,000, which is really not deterrent, or imprisonment of up to 7 years. But so we want business to go forward. Data protection is there to assist businesses to process data better and to gain traction from that end, and not to send people to jail. So we are trying to have more enforcement powers as a regulator, where instead of just resorting to the criminal sanctions, we also have cease and desist notices, non-enforcement notices, non-compliance notices. We ask people, we give people more time to comply, and then have administrative fines like they do in other jurisdictions. And we hope that that will also help compliance. But the work is a lot to bring the compliance to the necessary levels, but we are really excited about what it will look like as we continue now with the dual issue of both advocacy and voluntary compliance before we move into proper compliance checks and audits.
All right. Thank you very much, Zichanzi, for that for the talk. I'd like to welcome Miss Immaculate, the Data Protection Commissioner from Kenya. Ma'am, I understand that the technology was technologing and you were unable to join earlier. And despite you being early to the meeting, I do apologize for that. But regardless, we do appreciate your time. Maybe just to, before we ask you the questions, the question that I want to ask you, do you want to just say a few words? Conor, that you're just joining us. Then I'm just going to throw a question to you just now that you can then answer one of the panel questions.
Thank you, Alan. Sorry, yeah, indeed, technology is technology, and I hope you can hear me. My God, it's taken us
You,
30 minutes, maybe a case to justify why Africa needs to be better connected. I mean, it's been quite something. Anyway, I'm happy to be here. We are happy to contribute. It's good to see my fellow panelists, Maka and Zivika, are here, and we hope we can contribute to this debate. Thank you.
Awesome. It's so good to have you here, Immaculate. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we are having some technical difficulties. I think the internet is not smiling today. However, Immaculate, if you can hear me, just confirm again because I see that you are now
I
on
can hear you.
mute.
No, I
Awesome,
can hear
awesome.
you. I can hear you.
Okay,
Yeah,
good. So
I've
Immaculate,
put off the camera to allow to reduce the problem of yeah. Continue.
no, okay, that's great. You see, we find
Yeah,
we find a way of making it work, which is great.
yeah.
Quickly, right off the bat, we know that in Kenya there's been some great strides in raising data protection awareness, and I want to just throw this open to you. What are your top strategies of empowering DPOs to be effective, to become influential leaders, both inside their organization and across the industry? What are those things that you're doing? Because we have both aspiring DPOs and practicing DPOs, and they want to hear from you as a regulator. Let us know what are those effective strategies that you have been implementing and how we can chime in as DPOs.
Before my network goes off, I think just quickly, one, just like Zimbabwe, we were very keen on awareness. We say there's no need of going into enforcement before you create awareness. And in our awareness, we use multiple approach, partnership with civil society, partnership with public institution, partnership with professional institution, and also doing as many webinars because it is very difficult for you to begin enforcement when people don't understand the law. And that is what I would say that's something we can tackle. And also part of our awareness, we also did what we call below the line. We had road shows, went out to town hall meetings, did online awareness, which I've also seen my colleagues in the other data protection authorities have done very well. So you have to really use multiple approaches to create awareness, even as you go to enforcement, because it is. I also say only embark on enforcement if you have capacity because it can be quite overwhelming. As soon as you open the people to complain, on average, you can almost get a complaint on average one per day. And in our case, there is a limitation. You have the 90 days by which to make determinations. So you see, you can stretch. So if you embark on enforcement when you don't have the necessary human resource and financial resources, it can stretch an organization. So we only embarked on enforcement when we already had onboarded staff. That is what we did and that's when we started enforcement. I often say the Data Protection Act across Africa allows us, gives us both a stick and a carrot and stick. So you decide which one to use at which appropriate time. There are those notorious data controllers who will not pay attention to what you're saying. So that's when you unleash the stick. But also remember, because I say we didn't come here to put companies out of business. We are here to improve the ecosystem because the fundamentals of data protection are to protect and build trust. You also have to be careful not to be running around with a stick and then pushing people away. Because then what happens? You push enforcement under the table, and then you'll have lost your gains. So it's a tricky balance. You have to be very clear in terms of strategy. The other thing you have to be, because at times the challenges across Africa, even sitting as a first vice president of NADPA, is often resourcing. You really must look into partnership with the donors. We see GIZ has been our greatest supporter. World Bank is coming in to support, and also even small project. Don't be the ungrateful child. Take in whatever is being offered as long as it meets your principles and within your national principle, because also that can be an issue. Um, Walk slowly, take small steps, and you will get there. But what is important is consistency and to be very clear about which route you're taking and who you're bringing on board and who you're partnering. I hope that answers, Amaka, the
No,
issue.
no, this is very helpful, Immaculate. And it's, when I say this is real talk with regulators, this is very important because two things that I hear from you, Immaculate, is as a regulatory body, you have this multi-pronged approach to drive awareness. And DPOs should also emulate that, because within your organization, you might want to talk with HR, marketing, you want to talk with data analytics. So you also have to also adopt multi-pronged approach. Also, how you also drive awareness with the users that you serve. If the regulators can do this, you also can also learn and copy their method of driving awareness, because no one person will be able to do it all. And so together, we want DPOs who are very responsive, DPOs who will collaboratively drive the agenda of the regulators on the continent. So I think this is incredibly very helpful. Immaculate, while we are on you, and we'll come back to you, Zachinzi, and we want to thank you for getting us started. Immaculate, another question we received, let's get right into the questions that we're receiving from, our community is, now in Kenya, someone has said to us that, look, um, AI in health is becoming a big deal in Kenya. And this is from Ayub Robert, who has sent in this question earlier on. And he's
Oh
saying,
my God.
I think this sounds familiar, right? But beyond responding to Ayub, I think other people, before the question starts coming up, it's very helpful for you to address it. How can we balance this innovation with privacy of individuals, especially health sensitive health information being channeled into these AI systems? What should we do differently? What questions should we ask, and how should we think about these things? Immaculate, please take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. I think the challenge we are all experiencing and learning, it's like learning to actually run, not even walk. You wake up one day, you're born, and then you're told, please take the splint, and within less than a week. So it is obviously something we have to deal with as an emerging issue. As a country, of course, Kenya, we have such a high risk appetite. We I think we consume social media. If you want your product to grow, please come to our Kenyan on Twitter, and for sure, you will get likes on dislikes. We love the internet. Anyway, having said that, the question then becomes, how do you balance? Because we can't wish it away. It's the genie is out of the bottle. To say that we can wish away AI, or it's going to wait for regulation or guardrails, I think what we can do, because we've seen many countries, including Kenya, have come up with AI policy or strategies. That's a start. Because what the AI strategy and policy do, they give you a broad framework in terms of what needs to happen. In therein lies the principles that govern AI, and I think that now becomes a responsibility, because we also must remember we have only one earth, one human, and one continent, one world. You Even as we innovate, we then have to ask ourselves, what are the principles that lead to responsible innovation? And one of the things that I like to rely on when it comes to data protection is data protection by default and by design as a principle. When you do that as a DPO, it means that the conceptualization of projects, you're thinking through how it becomes human centric. Because when it becomes human centric, it means you're putting the customer at the center of your innovation. It means you're thinking of trust. When those become things that inform how you make decisions, then you'll never go wrong. I think where we fall off is where there's nothing wrong with prioritizing profit. After all, that's why you're investing in a venture. But profit above humanity is where we then go wrong. And that's why we keep saying, think about the guardrails. Because even if we try to catch up, we will never catch up as regulators or guardrails with innovation.
Wow, this is so insightful. It is so insightful what um Immaculate is sharing, because sometimes we want to stick with the rules and just follow the rule book. But this is calling us exactly, profit above humanity is something we should not tread on. And that is
You're
where we
inventing
as
and also
DPOs
thinking
come
of
in.
the
Go ahead.
guardrails. That would be what I would advise.
No, this is incredibly, very insightful. And two things before I come back to you,
Amaka, have I
Zachinzi.
lost you?
No, you still have me, and we really got your real point, which is, as DPOs, it is beyond a checklist. It is beyond the rule book. It's bringing your whole self to work and thinking through how can we prioritize humanity, because what you do is for you, for your family members, and for your fellow citizens. And so we should always prioritize that. In fact, I will share one scenario we had in class during our data protection foundation class. We challenge people to innovate, and like Immaculate has said, people in Kenya use social media, so in Nigeria and all part of the world. A participant in class, I think he's on the call, Noah, he said, look, if I like something someone has posted, but I want to give a like button, can I do that anonymously so that the person is encouraged to continue? Or can I do that privately so that only the creator can see that I liked the comment? Or the third option, which we all have, where you can like and everybody knows that you've liked this comment. So those are ways that we can begin to think creatively. But back to you, Zachinzi, as DPOs, and as Immaculate has mentioned, similar to what you have also mentioned on stakeholder. And I tell people, you can be so knowledgeable, understand cross-border data transfer, know all of the mechanism, data subject right. At the end of the day, success comes in when you can collaborate. You can talk with your human resources and they buy in. This is not you must do this. People need to buy in and come along with you on the journey. And so if people would want to leave this call thinking about, how can I go back to work and start thinking about collaboration? How can I drive awareness? How can I make people see my point? Because a lot of us have attended tons of classes. We have the checklist, but how can we now humanize this, and not just humanizing it for ourselves, but amplifying it for those, in our ecosystem within the organization? What would be your take on driving this and putting humanity over profit? A tough balance, but what would be your candid advice here?
So, in order for you to become more effective, like you rightly said, Amaka, you need to have that buy-in. And here in Zimbabwe, we always tell our DPOs that they are not alone. We are there to actually support them, because it is necessary for the awareness to be there at the right levels. And sometimes, because organizations like to comply, sometimes they do it as a box ticking exercise. And then they have somebody appointed as a DPO, but they're not giving them the space to actually do what they're supposed to do as a DPO. So we always say we are here to assist you. We have a team that is ready to host webinars, or even to just go and have a talk with management or the execs at whatever level that you want us to come and offer that support. And we do that and talk to the people at the right level, and to help the DPOs to have that awareness. In our country as well, people tend to like high level meetings. So every quarter we do organize those, so that we can have people talking about data protection at that level. So as the DPO, they'll always ask, can I have an invite in my boss's name, so that she can come, so that he can come. And as a regulator who's trying to raise that awareness, we also have a team that will write an invitation specifically for Amaka, specifically for Immaculate, and they will come and So basically, that's how we are also assisting our DPOs in doing the work. That we'll remove our hat as the regulator and actually go to the organizations in for a one-on-one sort of interaction and sharing information and raising that awareness. So as a DPO, the regulator is actually your friend, because we're in this together, really, we're in this together. So if we help you to create the space to do your work and have your work accepted at the right levels, it then becomes easier for us as the regulator to then create the space for the DPO ecosystem to grow, and for our DPOs to actually then have meaningful work and meaningful impact, and we'll be able to protect the data of our citizens in our various countries and across the continent. And not only that, if the rest of the world sees that Africa is taking data protection seriously, not only seriously, but they are doing it in a way that they're working at the same level that the rest of the of the world is working, and even coming up with more innovative ideas that are more suitable to their continent. People will continue to take us more seriously, and there'll be more opportunities for us as Africans in the DPO network, and for us at the global stage, really. When we now talk about data protection, they will listen, because they realize that we know what we're doing and we're very competent at it. Thank you.
It feels like you just read the script I always say in DPO Africa Network. I said, first of all, there is no global without Africa. First things first. However, if we must seal our seat on the table, we must come with fresh insight, new ideas, and make people listen. So being present at the table is not enough, but you've got to be at the table to contribute value to the table, which is really awesome. And someone was asking, you know, and this is someone from Zimbabwe, which is great, saying, what is one strategy to get senior leadership to prioritize data protection? You've talked about it. You've talked about, a resource that DPOs can leverage. And that is why we're doing this on the continent. Not just we train people in our data protection foundation and in our data protection practitioner course, but after the training, to give them confidence, they need to know that they can reach out to their regulators. This is not a regulator versus DPO. This is a collaborative. And I always say, as a DPO in your organization, you are a mini regulator to regulate in there. So you're more on the side of the regulator. So we see that this becomes a collaborative move. But just talk for a second around what is, top tips, especially for those who reach out to you to come talk to the senior executive. What if someone here is saying, you know what, I want to also support our regulators to start talking to our senior executives? What are those top things that will make executives listen up and prioritize data protection as we begin to wrap up this session?
Well, I think it's always really about the value proposition, because when we start the conversation is to show them how the business will benefit. So it increases your compliance standing, to say, look, we are compliant with every law in the country, including this. And like we said, we do have that compliance certificate that people like. Also, talking about issues helping the business to mitigate risk associated with not properly processing data, or processing data in ways that are against the law, against principles of data protection, risk mitigation in terms of having the proper organizational and technical measures to ensure security of the data that is being processed. Also, issues to do with protecting the business's reputation. Like I said, in Zimbabwe, we're publishing a list this week of all the compliant organizations. So to the execs, ask the wondering, if your name is not on the list, if your organization is not on the list of compliant organization, that is not very good on our reputation. Even your boards will start asking the exec, what are you doing? Why are we not on this list? So that is the angle from which you start what is in it for the business. Why should they take issues of data protection seriously? So you're looking at it from a governance perspective, you're looking at it from a reputational perspective. It's just to do with risks and how to mitigate that, and how to really also help the business in building its relations, especially when they're trying to do international business, to say, look, we're an organization that takes data protection issues seriously. So if you start at it from that angle, it's much easier to get the exec to buy in to the issues of data protection, and eventually get to uh, make sure that the data protection officer is there and that they're given the space to actually do their work, and the perks that come with the job. Yeah.
No, this is incredibly impactful, and I want to make sure that people are getting this point that you're dropping. And one way to look at it is she's just talked about Hall of Fame. We call it Shame or Fame Hall, where we want to position those who are compliant. Now you should be asking yourself this question: how can I take this strategy into my organization? This is one thing that I have done previously. When you're reporting to senior leadership, you've got different departments within your organization. What you could do is those organizations, those departments that have complied, they've done their DPIA, they've collaborated with you. You have to have a metrics of tracking them. If there's a way to delete or retention, those who have complied, you have to have a way of tracking. And so during your quarterly meetings, if you have a 10-minute presentation, you want to put on the board departments who are now compliant, because at the end of the day, if this department becomes non-compliant, you wouldn't make it on the list when the regulators publish. So within your organization, remember, you are a mini regulator, so you should start taking this strategy on a high level and translating it within your organization. So very key insight here, and it's always helpful as we think through these things to learn what our regulators are doing, and also think about how can I adapt these within my organization. So this is very practical, and I do not want any of us to miss it. I know someone had asked a question to Miss Immaculate, and she's not on stage right now, and I will just read out the question. The question was around cloud computing, seeing that we have organizations who store and host things in the cloud, and how can we think about data localization and all of that concept cross-border. If we recall what Immaculate had mentioned, think about Kenya. A lot of people are on social media, and these social media companies, they're not in Kenya. They are far away in different countries. And so we need to be able to do a balancing act. And she also said that this is a green field, and the regulators are learning, so are we learning. And when we reach out to the regulators, it's all about how can we collaboratively, how can we co-create a solution that minimizes the risk, but also allows our citizens to enjoy the benefit. However, from my vantage point, in terms of cloud hosting, it can be a complex and also a critical challenge for most DPO, because we need to balance business need. When we think about cloud services, it offers scalable, flexible, and cost-effective solutions that many organizations rely on to manage data efficiently. So think about that. However, on the other hand, when this data is hosted outside the country, it creates real challenges. So for your country, you want to understand what mechanisms for transfer, but there's also a difference between data sovereignty and data localization, which is, last data protection in practice, we really went into cross-border collaboration. So know the difference, know what mechanism is obtainable in your country. And this is where we would also love to invite you for the DPO meetup group. DPO meetup group is a place where you have challenges as a DPO. It doesn't have to be something over the top. You could join the group, ask your question, and collaboratively with other DPOs, you can think of a solution to provide. So Lorato has put the link in the chat. Try to join. If you have those questions that have not been answered on today's call, please submit those questions in the form. We're not providing you with answers, but together we will be solving those and we will be brainstorming on those together. The DPO meetup group is the last Monday of every month. We've gathered all the questions now. In fact, the last time we met, it was as simple as, oh, somebody sent an email and over 100 recipients, and it was all CC. So people now have my email. How can we do better? And we had to show people, even as simple as using the BCC, that's a privacy feature there, or even using a mailing list or, some other email solution. And these are things people have used in the network. They can share with you their template. As we begin to wrap it up here, Zuchinzi, I want to hear from you. What are your last words as you part? Is there anything new on the horizon going on in Zimbabwe? And what is, if you had to project, 5 years from now, what would you want to see on the continent with regards to data protection? Let us begin to bring it to a close here. And I want to appreciate everyone for joining. Yes. Can we get you back?
Yes, thanks. Sorry, I've had to switch off my camera because I'm also starting to have connectivity issues. I think there's something happening on our
Today.
end. Yes, yes, yes. So looking forward, looking to first seeing us having more people in the authority. Immaculate says something very important, that don't do enforcement until you have the capacity to do so. And in our authority, we do not yet have that critical mass. So I'm hoping that we'll have more people in the authority, then we'll be able to do more work, including enforcement. But on a global scale, last year at the Global Privacy Assembly, one of the resolutions that they passed was moving towards standardizing the training of data protection officers. So I am hoping that this resolution will come to fruition, and that us as people on the African continent will also be at the forefront of that, because we've made some great strides towards training data protection officers. I know there's a program that happens in Ghana, and Nigeria is also doing the same, and we are doing the same in Zimbabwe. So I think if we come together at a pan-African sort of level, we can also show the world that we are thought leaders, and we are not just leaders, thought leaders, but we're actually real implementers, and we can change the game in this resolution of standardizing the training of and knowledge of data protection officers. And I also want to see this network grow, Amaka. Because we do have the talent, and there's lots of youthful exuberance and energy. So I looking forward to seeing what this DPO network will look like. I'm even looking at ourselves being as big as IAP. AIPP. Sorry, I'm very bad with letters, but you know what? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We can do that, and we do have the skills, and we just need to continue believing in ourselves and going out there and doing the work. The most scary thing to do is to start, but we have started. So let's take on the world. And from my own work here in Zimbabwe, I hope that we will also have stronger enforcement mechanisms, so that the work that we're doing now can also grow bigger, because there's more effective enforcement mechanisms. Thank you, Amaka.
Thank you so much. This is so inspiring, and thank you, Zachinzi, for joining us. And you all have heard her. We should not just see the regulators as the complaint body. We have a complaint, we go to the regulator. We can also go to them with innovation, with solutioning, of how things can be done better or different because we have a close proximity to the people that we serve, and we have the confidence of looking at a solution to ensuring that we minimize the risk and also maximize the benefit for you all. And I'm really excited about standardizing the trainings because we have different versions. And trust me, any training you'll join will have its own benefit. In fact, when I looked at the training on the continent, I said to myself, I train people from all over the world. Why wouldn't I come do this in Africa? And that is why part of DPO Africa Network is also driving and championing training. And I am honestly looking forward to that harmonization of training so that someone trained a certified DPO in Zimbabwe can remotely work in Kenya, can work in Nigeria, work in Uganda. Let us ensure that we can ensure cross-pollination of the talents that we have on the continent. So you all are right in the right place at the right time while we are building, and you have the power to shape the network. So thank you so much for joining. And for some of you who are interested in elevating your expertise, we've got a training coming up on Monday. Actually, it's coming up on Monday, and it's a 6-day training, Monday through Saturday, 2 hours each day. If you want to be a part of it, Lorato will put the link in the chat. Please take advantage of that. You've seen me share the meetup group. Please take advantage of it. However, if you are in a place where you've got a little bit more time, you're passionate about data protection, or you want to be involved and immersed. Yeah, we've asked people to share their LinkedIn URL here, which is great. However, when we all pull together our resource to work towards a common goal, we get connected even deeper. And so we want to invite you to join and become a volunteer. What it means to become a volunteer is simply you've got the bandwidth to contribute. We're actually doing a privacy review this series. You don't have to be an expert. You might even be a student. It doesn't matter. Look, you're not just looking at the regulation, we're giving you the tools, even the AI tools. We're teaching people on AI and how to use AI tools. Prince, who is our lead, has videos on. He has videos on Notebook LM, which we're also leveraging because we can't do things the manual way. The train has left the station, so we've got to ramp up. Let none of this scare you. Come as you are. If you have 5 hours to contribute, 2 hours to contribute every week, that is going to be valuable, not just to yourself, but to the greater good of the continent. So come, even just check us out and see if this is something you would like to do. So yes, thank you, Prince, for all you do. Prince has been amazing. He's been the star player this season. So join us, become a volunteer. The link is there. It's free. We only ask that you commit your time and be vested in it. There are tons of initiatives going on within the network, but I do not want to saddle you with any of those. If you've got any question on how to participate, how to make your voice heard, or you want to do something different, please email us at info@dpoafrica.net. I read all these messages. We are not 10,000 yet. We're only 2,000. So every message you send, I read them and I respond to them. And so we welcome you to come in and also lead. One last thing that I will say before we call this a wrap is we're going to be releasing a DPO Diary series sometime today. Oh, most of you are in the evening. today, tomorrow. It's going to be on our YouTube channel, DPO Africa Network. Go check it out. This is where we want to talk to people one-on-one and make it publish it so that it can inspire you all. And you know what? For over 100 of you that has stayed in with us, this shows resilience. For irrespective of the technical difficulty, we had some of our panelists not show up simply because of last minute emergency. We're all human and we have to extend grace to them. We want to say thank you so much. If you're interested in the data protection practitioner course and you cannot afford it, send us an email and we have limited discounts we can also provide to a couple of people who may be interested. And with that being said, let's bring this to a wrap. Thank you all so much. I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you, and hope to see you again next month, third Wednesday of the month, where the DPO meetup group last Monday which is just this Monday. So please join us. Okay, this is bye from me. Thanks a lot to Chinzi for holding it forth. We deeply appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Bye for now.